When you texted the launch time for F-18s going into combat, did that launch time come from Central Command, yes or no?
I know what you're referring to. Any way that the Secretary of Defense communicates or provides information in and of itself is classified.
Do you plan to take any accountability for that? How many generals and admirals have you fired?
I don't know the exact number, but
You don't know the number. It's 8.
Congressman Seth Moulton didn't ask one question. He asked a series of simple ones. About military launch timing, about secure communications, about accountability. And that's when things got uncomfortable. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth avoided giving a clear answer, even while admitting he fired multiple generals in the name of accountability. And this is where it gets interesting, because once you put these moments together, a bigger question becomes impossible to ignore. If accountability applies to them, why does it stop at the top? Pay close attention to what comes next.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes a gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Moulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hegseth, I'd like to clarify a few important details for the record. When you texted the launch time for F-18s going into combat over enemy territory facing anti-aircraft missiles on an unclassified signal chat, did that launch time come from Central Command, yes or no?
I know what you're referring to. There were no
It's a very simple
targets
question.
or
Did it come from?
locations
It's a
or-
very simple question. Did it come from Central Command?
Well, in this committee, no way in which I communicate or what I communicate on a successful strike is something that I would share.
So you can't even identify the combatant command under which this operation occurred.
Well, everybody knows the.
Okay, so everyone knows this Central Command. So when Central Command sent you this information, did they send it on a classified system or an unclassified system?
Well, as you know, having served yourself, any way that the Secretary of Defense communicates or provides information in and of itself is classified and not to be discussed.
What?
So what was the classification marking of the launch time when it was sent to you? Because DoD regulations require information on classified systems to be marked.
What was the classification mark time?
Yeah. What was the classification marking? Because
Again,
DoD
classifications of any information in an ongoing operation that was successful are not things that would be disclosed in a public forum.
But
know that.
you can very well disclose whether or not it was classified. It's not classified to disclose whether or not it was classified. And in fact, DoD regulations state that any classified information has to be labeled with its classification. Was it classified secret or top secret?
Here I come.
What's not classified is that it was an incredibly successful mission against the Houthis.
What the hell are you talking about?
Okay, so it was classified. So are you trying to say that the information was unclassified?
I'm not
Okay,
trying to
that's
say
what
anything.
I thought. You're not saying that. So you took classified information from Central Command that had a classification marking on it, because that's what's required by DoD regulations, and you put it on an unclassified system. So we're going to get a report in a few days from the DoD Inspector General. And if the DoD Inspector General finds what is pretty obvious, both to you smiling there in the witness seat and to all of us up here, that the information was, in fact, classified, do you plan to take any accountability for that?
As I pointed out at the time,
You said that accountability is back. Does that not apply to you?
as I said at the time, Congressman, there were no names, targets, locations, units, routes, sources, methods, no classified information.
What did that just mean?
Okay, so if it comes back that it is classified, will you take accountability or not?
As
You've
I
already
said,
established, you've already admitted that it was classified because everything you get from CENTCOM is classified. You just explained that to me. That's how you justified not answering the question.
Not what I said. I didn't confirm any classification or
Okay, so if it is
what
confirmed,
I know is that
will you take
everything
accountability?
I share, everything I talk about,
Mr.
as
Secretary,
of
does
Defense
accountability apply to you or not?
is classified whether I talk or not.
Does it apply to you or not?
Does what apply to me or not?
Accountability. You said accountability is back at the Secretary.
And you know what? The Houthis were held accountable for shooting at our
I'm
ships
just asking if it applies
very
to you.
successfully.
I'm not asking about the
Previous
Houthis.
administration let our ships get shot at, and nothing was done about it. And thankfully, because of the skill and courage of our troops on
I'm
the
just
battlefield,
asking about
we
I
actually
reclaim my
put them
time.
in a place
I
where
reclaim
they
my time.
called for a ceasefire.
I claim my time. I'm just asking if accountability applies to you. It's a very simple question.
I
We use
serve-
leadership by
Of
example.
course, unlike, I serve at the pleasure of the president like everybody else does.
That's an interesting way of putting. That makes sense.
So it only applies to the president, not to you.
I serve at the pleasure.
You talked about the success of the Houthi operation. About how much money did it cost? How much money did you spend on missiles shooting at the Houthis?
Well, you'd have to compare that with what it costs.
I'm just asking how much did it
divert
cost?
our shipping lanes around.
I'm told
the
it's
sea.
several $100 million, maybe close to $1 billion. How many U.S. flagged commercial ships have transited the Red Sea since your so-called successful operation?
Well, thankfully, unlike the previous administration,
The answer
we
is
had
zero.
military vessels transit.
No, I didn't ask
just
about
this
military
week.
vessels. I
Well, which
asked
would
about
be the
commercial
precursor
vessels.
for
How many
civilian and
commercial vessels?
transit.
It's been several weeks. How many commercial vessels, U.S. flagged, have
Well,
transited the
would
Red
you, Mr. Congressman, put civilian ships
The
through
questions
dam
are not to
for
me,
military
Mr.
ships?
Secretary,
So
they're to you.
We have responsibly put military
The answer
ships
is zero.
through first.
I reclaim my time. How many generals and admirals have you fired?
I don't know the exact number, but
You don't know the number. It's 8. Can you explain why any of them were fired? Like, just explain why was the Army JAG fired? Why did you fire him?
they all serve at the pleasure of the president. And I think
No, I'm just asking you why.
General Kane is a great example.
I'm just
of
asking
a
you
leader
why.
that we
And
need
you
at
probably
this
learned at
time.
Princeton what why means. Why did you fire him?
They serve at the pleasure of the president, and we
Why
want better
did you
representation
fire
in
him?
each and every of those.
You can't
each and
explain
every
why
one
you
of those
fired any of
places.
them?
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott.
So, what actually happened here? At first, it looks like another tense congressional hearing. Raised voices, interruptions, the usual back and forth. But once you slow it down, something more specific is happening. Seth Moulton asked a very narrow question. He wanted to know whether the launch timing of F-18 aircraft, planes flying into hostile airspace, was shared through an unclassified signal chat. That's not a political question, it's a procedural one. In military operations, launch times matter. They can show when aircraft are vulnerable, how operations are planned, and what risks are involved. That's why this kind of information is normally handled on classified systems, with clear markings and strict rules. Moulton asked for a yes or no. The response is where things shift. Hegseth didn't say yes. He didn't say no. Instead, he argued that anything he communicates is automatically classified because of his position. But that's not how classification works in practice. Information is classified based on what it contains and the risk it creates, not based on who is speaking. The entire system exists so everyone, at every level, knows exactly what information requires protection and how it should be handled. If classification depends only on title, then the rules stop being rules. They become flexible. And that's where problems begin. Now here's the part that gives this moment real weight. In the same exchange, Hegseth referenced the removal of multiple generals and admirals. The explanation for those decisions was accountability. So on one side, accountability is being used to justify firing senior military leaders, publicly, decisively. But when accountability is directed upward, towards civilian leadership, the answers suddenly become less clear. This matters because accountability in the military usually follows a predictable pattern. If a junior officer mishandles classified information, even by mistake, there's a process, an investigation, reports, and often real career consequences. That system exists to reduce risk and protect operations. It works because the standards are supposed to be consistent. When those standards appear strict for some and negotiable for others, it creates a credibility problem. Not just for one person, but for the principle itself. People watching this exchange, especially those who have served, understand this immediately. They know what would happen to them in a similar situation. They live under those rules every day. So when accountability is used to remove generals, but position is used to avoid clear answers, a simple question naturally follows. Is accountability a principle or a tool applied only when convenient? This isn't about party politics or personal attacks. It's about whether the rules governing sensitive military operations apply equally hookup or depend on rank and proximity to power. The Inspector General is now reviewing what happened. That process exists for a reason. But even before any report is released, the exchange itself revealed something important. When leaders avoid direct answers about their own actions while demanding accountability from others, trust starts to erode. Moulton asked a clear question. He didn't get a clear answer. And in systems built on trust and discipline, that lack of clarity matters, long after the cameras move on. Before we move on, it's worth understanding why this moment felt different. Congressional hearings happen all the time. Questions are asked, answers get avoided, then the news cycle moves on. But some exchanges don't fade, not because they were dramatic, but because they exposed something people already felt, but rarely see stated clearly. The trust factor matters here. In structured institutions, especially the military, trust doesn't come from speeches or explanations. It comes from consistency, from knowing that the same rules apply whether you're at the bottom of the chain or at the very top. That's why this moment resonated so strongly with people who've served or worked inside hierarchical systems. They didn't need commentary to understand it. They recognized the issue instantly because they've lived under those standards themselves. And that's also why the Inspector General's investigation, while important, isn't the full story. Investigations can end, reports can be written, but the questions raised in moments like this don't disappear. They shape how people judge leadership decisions long after the hearing is over. This isn't about declaring guilt before the facts are in. It's about clarity, and about how quickly institutional credibility can weaken when clear answers stop coming. If you're looking for more videos like this, you can subscribe to see more. And if you know someone who likes clear explanations, feel free to share it with them. Thanks for watching.